All right, let's get right into it. On January 29th, 2026, EASA issued Proposed Airworthiness Directive 26-016. Now, if you operate the Airbus A330, this is a big deal. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what this means for you and your fleet.
First things first, this isn't just a recommendation. This is an official proposal coming straight from EASA, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency. You know, when they speak, everyone in the industry listens. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the essentials, the why behind all this. Then we'll see if your A330s are on the list. After that, we'll get into the specifics of what you have to do and when, check out the impact on safety and operations, and then we'll wrap it all up with a clear summary and your next steps.
Okay, let's dive into the core of this directive. Because before you can understand what to do, you really need to understand why it's happening in the first place.
So this new directive actually replaces an older one from 2024. And the reason for the update is pretty straightforward. Airbus has come out with new, more restrictive maintenance tasks. They've updated what's called the Airworthiness Limitation section, or ALS. This is totally normal in aviation. As we get more data on how these planes perform over time, maintenance gets refined to keep them flying safely.
And that brings us to the heart of the matter, the unsafe condition. What does that mean? Well, simply put, if an airline keeps using old maintenance instructions, they're not following the latest safety protocols. We're talking about the risk of things like fatigue cracking, which could seriously compromise the plane's structural integrity. And that's a risk nobody, absolutely nobody, is willing to take.
All right, here's the million-dollar question. Does this directive actually affect your fleet? Let's take a close look at the applicability.
And the answer is, it's broad. Really broad. We're looking at pretty much the entire A330 family here, from the -200s, the -300s, including the freighter versions, all the way up to the newest A330-800 and 900 Neo models.
And just to make it crystal clear, this applies to all of them. It doesn't matter what the manufacturer serial number is. If you fly one of the models we just saw, this directive is for you. No exceptions.
Okay, so we've covered the why and the who. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the what and the when. Let's break down the mandatory actions and the all-important deadlines.
It all boils down to two main actions. First, there's the paperwork side of things. You've got to revise your aircraft maintenance program, or AMP. And second, there's the hands-on work. You need to replace certain life-limited parts according to the new, stricter schedule.
This table lays it all out. The key document for everything is the Airbus A330 ALS Part 1, Revision 14. But pay close attention to the deadlines, because they're not the same. For revising your AMP, you've got a 12-month window, but for replacing the parts, the deadline is simply before exceeding the new limits. That could mean some parts need attention much sooner than you think.
Let's just hammer this point home. 12 months. That's the clock you're on to get your maintenance program updated. For any operator, but especially those with large fleets, this means your planning and engineering teams need to get moving on this like yesterday.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What does all this mean for the big picture? You know, for safety and for your day-to-day flight operations.
So it all starts with the hazard. The risk here is pretty clear. You're operating with old data, which means your life limits for critical parts aren't up to the latest safety standards. And the action, complying with this new directive. This is the solution. It forces everyone to adopt the latest, safest maintenance intervals that Airbus has developed.
Which brings us to the outcome, the whole reason we do any of this: continued airworthiness. This ensures the aircraft remains safe to fly. It's not just about ticking a regulatory box, it's about maintaining the absolute highest standard of safety. So, if you're in management, here's the bottom line. That 12-month window isn't a lot of time, so planning needs to start now. Your maintenance planning and engineering teams are going to need the right resources. Your procurement folks need to know that they might have to get certain parts sooner than planned. And if you don't stay ahead of this, you could be looking at planes sitting on the ground, and we all know what that means for the bottom line. All right, let's pull all of this together. Here's a quick summary of the key takeaways and the action items you need to focus on.
So after all that, what are the absolute must-knows? What do you need to walk away with from this explainer on pad 26016?
It really is as simple as who, what, and when. Who? All operators of those specific A330 models. What? You need to revise your AMP and replace parts according to the new ALS Revision 14. And when? You've got 12 months to get the AMP revised, but the parts need to be replaced before they hit those new, lower life limits. And I have to say, this is probably the most important point of all. While we've given you a solid overview here, This is not a substitute for the real thing. For full compliance and all the technical details, you must refer to the official EASA AD text and the related Airbus service bulletins.
Thanks for tuning in to this breakdown of PAD 26-016. To stay on top of the latest airworthiness directives and maintenance updates, make sure you subscribe to the Aeropoda YouTube channel.